back for Arfield. 1-0 Burnley. Scott Arfield. He's been threatening that recently. And all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end.
Burnley win the next ball. It's Rory now. On the outside. Decent.
Barnes! He got it! Ashley Barnes with it! What a cross from Rory! And there was Ashley Barnes! And Burnley leading the derby.
Obviously quickly finds Benson in space at the byline. Can Burnley get a goal here? Back for Brown now. Saved by the keeper.
Burnley won it to the end. That is magnificent. They deserve that.
On it by Fulton Teller. Off for a hat-trick.
He's got it. Hat-trick for Nathan Teller. Oh, he's on fire at the minute. 3-0 Burnley. It's Nathan Teller's day. And Burnley are 3 up here. Fantastic derby.
Here's Benson. Can he go on the outside? Comes inside. Have a shot.
Oh, what a goal. Manuel Benson once more. That is top class. Burnley have done it. Fantastic. Clarets deserve the championship title. They've been the best side throughout the campaign. Burnley have won the second tier. What a fantastic achievement. The players have been magnificent.
Yes, hello, I want to welcome along to the latest instalment of the Turfcast podcast pre-game show with me, Joe Redman, ahead of the Friday night's game against Middlesbrough. I nearly said the weekend then. I do that every single time and I forget I'm doing a midweek show. But it's not midweek this one. It's Friday night in front of the cameras at Turf Moor. And if you've been around the pod for a while, you may recognise our guest. It's Johnny from Boro Breakdown, who was on a couple of seasons ago during our last stint in the Championship. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you, man. I'm really good. I think the last time we chatted, though, I had a full head of hair, and I've just decided to buzz it off since. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit different, but yeah, keeping really well, mate. How's things?
Yeah, good, mate. Thank you. Really good. And obviously, I have great memories of playing Middlesbrough. I think the last time you were on here, we were just about to get promoted, and obviously we had to win the game at the Riverside. We did. Little bit controversial. One of the goals, Ashley Barnes may or may not have been offside, but we'd have won anyway, wouldn't we? We'd have won anyway. But yeah, good memories, mate. And I don't know if you managed to get to that game as well, or even if you remember anything of it. But yeah, a great day out for Burnley fans. Well, what's your sort of like memory of that game?
Probably watching Vince Company ball live. I think it was. I've watched. Well, I used to watch Company manage Anderlecht for a while, so it was quite nice to watch it in the flesh. And also see Josh Cullen play as well, which is always a bonus for anyone. But yeah, it was a game where you just feel a bit bitter, don't you? When you see a team get promoted, don't you? You just feel, oh, okay, I wish that was us. We were really inconsistent that year to some aspect of it, you know, where, well, if you look at Carrick's reign, there's been consistencies and inconsistencies. Some of the highs have been fantastic. Some of the lows have been, But yeah, it was a night I pretty much forgot about until you brought it up, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously you're not going to remember it well, are you? It's weird though, because like these stadiums that I've been to the Riverside, don't know, probably about 10 times, a lot of times, and now all of a sudden it becomes this stadium that I remember with something positive. Like the amount of times I went to the Riverside and it just be a nothing game, or we'd get beat, or there won't even be that many Burnley fans there. And now it's one of them stadiums that I look at. Like I think you can sometimes see it when if you drive through Sunderland and drive up to Sunderland, you can see sort of like, if depending on which way you go, you can see the transporter bridge and stuff like that, and then that brings back memories of the Riverside and things like that. And it's just one of them grounds now that's in my memory of what we got promoted there that year, which weirdly enough, so is Ewood Park, because that's where we obviously ended up winning the league. But yeah, file under Glanford Park for me, and the Medeski Stadium as grounds where I've witnessed something fantastic. But anyway, we're not here to reminisce about Vincent Company Ball, because it leaves a bit of a bitter taste for some of us now. But let's talk about Middlesbrough. 5th in the league, doing pretty well. You must be happy with how your season's gone so far.
Yeah, I would say so. You know, we've been inconsistent, and, you know, we've really started to put a run together now, and, you know, putting chances in the back of the net, which was a bit of an issue at the start of the season, really, where we weren't fully clicking in front of goal. But now it's starting to click. We're starting to score goals. You know, people are starting to fit in really well, and you've got competition for places too, which really is really beneficial for us. And Yeah, we're in good stead at the moment. I'll ignore the game midweek against the team that you do not like, just due to us having a number of injuries and illnesses, which did affect us in terms of in terms of our creativity and setup. But back to business as normal against Hull, and yeah, I feel like we've picked up some really good results, and things could be fairly bright for us this season, I think.
Yeah, thank you for losing to them, by the way. But to be fair to you, you have just
Offside.
mentioned
It's
that.
offside.
Oh, mine was offside. Even I was fuming, but that's just me being, a Burnley fan. But we can't really complain because we had a couple of offside decisions to go our way, one against them and one against Preston. You mentioned there you clicked recently. I was doing my 5 minutes of research before the show started. Have you scored 9 goals in your last 2 games? I think I saw.
Yeah, it was, and it's 9-2, and then it's like I think
Yeah,
18-4, 5. So it's pretty insane,
madness.
isn't it?
So what's going so well up front then? Because I know you've got Latte Lath, I know you've got Tommy Conway, but it's not just about the players, is it? So what are you doing so well up front?
We've got layers of creativity. So when you're looking at attacking teams and really good teams in the past, what have they got? They've got like 3 or 4, 5, 6 players who you can rely on in different moments. So if someone's countering one player, you've got another player to get you out of so many issues that you have. But for Middlesbrough, it's been really good that you've got Finn Azaz there, who I think is arguably one of the best creative players in the AFL completely. Ben Dorcas started off very, very well from Liverpool. Rylan McGree, Delano Berg's always doing well. And then you have the likes of Hayden Hackney, who's probably one of the best ball carrying midfielders in the Championship too. So there's a lot of creative players and competition for that. And it has took a little bit of time for us to really get going. But I think Ben Dork's made a massive difference on the right to be a bit more direct. It allows us to chop and change things mid-game if we need to. But it's just that layers of attack so you can't balls everything off. And I think that's really worked for us. And it's no secret why we're top goal scorers. To be honest, we create that many chances. It's just been a problem where we haven't converted them. But then when we have converted them, it's been these last 4 or 5 games where we just scored a lot of goals, and it was only a matter of time until it really happened, to be honest. But it's that layers, like I mentioned, layers of attacking quality, and it's working really well for us.
Yeah, I think that's why we were so good in the company going forward. Similar to that, just layers upon layers. And it's something we just don't have this season. I mean, hopefully we can. This is going to make it sound like I think you're going to batter us, but hopefully we can learn a thing or two off you with how you go forward against us. Because having said that, we have clicked recently. We've started doing better going forward. That second half against Stoke, we look really, really good, really, really dangerous. So fingers crossed, we are starting to find our feet, and it really does feel like we are. You mentioned their top scorers in the league. I think Norwich actually overtook you at the. I would say I thought they overtook you at the weekend, but you scored. Did you not score? No, you only scored the 3 at the weekend. I'm getting mixed. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, only 3. We had to score 3 this season, I don't think, off the top of my head. But yeah, it's interesting to see how you get on because obviously Norwich is doing quite well as well. It's going to be interesting to see how you do against us. I do think it's our first proper test for a while. Like we've played Sunderland, we lost up at Sunderland. We've played Leeds, and we obviously won at Leeds in a very defensive display. To be fair to us and to Leeds, Leeds were the more dominant side, but we managed to just. I think there's a blueprint to beat Leeds, and it's doing what we did that day. But we have started to turn a corner recently. We have looked brilliant at the back all season. Only conceded 6 goals all season, and obviously we're coming up against one of the best goal scorers in the league with 32 goals you've got so far this season. So it's going to be interesting to see how the best defense in the league gets on against one of the best attacks in the league. But obviously we're seeing it as our defense's biggest test for a while. I'm sure you're seeing it as your striker's biggest test for a while, aren't you?
100% it is. We have to break these teams down. At the start of the season where teams would come and be in a really compact shape for a long period, it was quite difficult for us to break it down. But we've started to really do very well in those moments. We've, like I said, those different people in different areas trying to cause a lot of problems. And it's a really good opportunity for us to go to Turf Moor and try and get something from the game, to be honest. Like we have beat the likes of Leeds. We beat Leeds 3-0 in the Cup. We've beat Sheffield United. We're beating the teams in and around us. I think we've just struggled with the teams towards the bottom. but that's slowly starting to change now. But I'm really intrigued to see how Scott Parker sets up in terms of like the shape, but also how aggressive is he going to try and play this game? Is he going to try and play out and, hold the possession like I've seen, Scott Parker do for under different teams where he's trying to really dominate the possession for long periods? Or is he reluctant to kind of give the ball up and let Middlesbrough have more possession and just see if he could bide the time and try and get us on a break? Or because we do concede goals, we've been a bit unfortunate, I would say, to concede as many as we have. But we're still there to be got at, essentially. We still like to concede a goal. We just tend to outscore the other teams, which for you guys I think is a bit opposite, where you go in, we'll just try and win 1-0 every game, and if you win 1-0, that's superb, isn't it? So but it's a really interesting game, really interesting dynamic for both teams, I think.
Yeah, completely agree. And it's interesting you mentioned there teams were just coming and setting up in a low block and you were struggling to break them down. That were our problem at the start of the season. Oxford away, Preston at home, Portsmouth at home are just the ones that I can remember. Even Blackburn, like that's what they did, especially after they scored the second goal in the game, the incredibly lucky goal that they scored. But it's interesting that you have found a way to get past these sort of teams. What is it that you've started doing? Have you recently changed shape, or is it just things have just started to gel a bit more for Middlesbrough?
I think there's multiple layers to it. I think one of them is around tempo, I would say, trying to move the ball a little bit quicker, pull the team out of shape and try to get the ball in good areas. Again, we're not afraid to switch the ball a bit more quickly now to the right-hand side so it pulls someone out. And it's just more of a case of trying to get people in good areas too. And so you're having good tempo, you're switching the ball a lot quicker, but then also if you're getting people in the right areas to maybe get a defender have a decision to make, it does create space elsewhere. And when I come back to the layers aspect, if you're trying to compact the certain area of the pitch, someone else from a different area is going to be in a better position. So those things probably collate together has really benefited us, and we've been able to break teams down a lot better. But the worst thing that can happen at Middlesbrough is when we start to horseshoe it, because that's where it gets a little bit frustrating because we don't break down as quick. But yeah, I think that first goal really matters for us, to be honest. If we get that first goal, it just seems like the game just really opens up for us. Whereas when we concede, it's like, oh God, it's like we're trying to force it too much and it doesn't really work. But yeah, going back to those things, 3 or 4 characteristics or type of play have really helped us get more goals when we needed to. But again, we have quality in the side, which is definitely helping us, to be honest, having the quality.
Yeah, definitely. I do. Like I said earlier, I think you've got a couple of good players. And in fact, we'll mention them now. Obviously, it's interesting that you've got 2 very good strikers in Conway and Latte Lath. And interesting, I'm not going to lie, I have stolen this off Gav Sutton, who I did some filming with today. But he because obviously he researches all the teams and stuff. He was saying that you've got Tommy Conway and you've got Latte Lath, but yet you only tend to play one each week. Like you'll play one up front, which is brilliant to have. Like we would love either of them. Like we are just crying out for a striker. As much as I love Jay Rodriguez and he's started to do well and he's started to find his feet this season. Well, say he's not really been playing up until recently, but now he's been given the chance to find his feet. Maybe not needed as much, but Jay's 35, 34. Whatever he is, he's not going to last all season. Even the 3 games in a week recently, I didn't think he was going to do that well against Stoke. He proved me wrong, but I don't think he can do that throughout the season at his age. It must be a brilliant sort of like Arsenal to have as strikers for Middlesbrough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not used to it, mate. Don't worry about it. I'm definitely not used to it, but we're having good strikers. But I feel like under Carrick, we just had players who can hit the back of the net. Cameron Archer, Chua Rakpon, and now Emmanuel Latte and Tommy Conway, who are all scoring more than double figures each season, which I think is fantastic to have. Marcus Forss is still there, but he's just come back from injury. So again, another great player to have. And there's a reason why we play one or the other, and it's because of Finn Azaz. I think Finn Azaz is just a wonderful, wonderful talent. We bought him from Aston Villa via Plymouth last season, and he's just been magical. I'm running out of words to describe how great he is. So comfortable on both feet, gets himself in good areas. His last pass towards the attacker is fantastic, and he's starting to add goals to his game as well. I think it's 10 goal contributions in some of the last 5 games or something that he's got. And yeah, he's a wonderful talent, and he's the reason why we're clicking, I would say, in certain areas. But yeah, it's a nice it's a nice problem to have these attacking players. But I'm saying these things and trust us to drop 0 shots on target. Nothing will happen to us on Friday, to be honest.
I mean, to be fair, if there's a defence where you get 0 shots on target, it would be ours, and that wouldn't be a reflection on yourselves. It would just be how good our defensive. Like, having said that, we did concede a couple of efforts against Stoke at the weekend, and that's what worries me. I feel like if one of these efforts falls to Conway or Lath or Finn Azaz, for example, then we might concede at the weekend. And we'll get into predictions later on, but I am actually predicted us to concede this weekend. Just we're coming up against a very, very good attacking side. I'd always like to sort of ask who you feel is the player best to hurt Burnley. I normally ask that a little bit later on, but seeing as now you've just spoken at length there about Finn Azaz, I've mentioned Conway, and obviously Lath as well. Obviously, I'm not sure which one of them two will be played. I think Conway got a couple at the weekend, so you probably opt for him. But yeah, which player do you think is most likely to hurt Burnley in the Middlesbrough team this weekend?
Probably Ben Doak, to be honest. He's been excellent since he came on loan from Liverpool. Really direct, old-fashioned winger. Likes to beat his man and get the ball in the box, and he's been excellent so far. I think him combined with Azaz has been a great connection on the right-hand side for us. And I think those are probably the two players I would really look out for if I was a Burnley fan. Two really good, talented young footballers, 22, 18-year-old, really young talent. But then you could look at Hayden Hackney as well for someone who can play through the thirds really well. And, England in under 21 international, performing great, linked with a move to the Premier League in the summer. I think he has a really good opportunity again to, stake his claim as to why he thinks he can make that step up. So I think there's 2 or 3 players I would 100% keep an eye on if I was a Burnley fan.
Yeah, fair enough. I do want to talk to you about Carrick. I know we've kind of like skirted over him a little bit recently. I feel like he's been there for ages now, and he's no denying he's a good manager. And I seem to remember when we were looking for a manager in the summer, his name was bandied about a couple of times. I'm not sure how serious he was, but I remember seeing that name and thinking, I would like Carrick. He's done an okay job at Middlesbrough. But I just think looking back, you just always seem to be at the same sort of like level. You've not really gone up, you've not really gone down, but it looks like this season you might have kicked on a little bit, to be fair. But I do feel like with Middlesbrough, there is sometimes seasons where you're looking at Middlesbrough and you're thinking, this could be the year, and then ultimately you just fade away a little bit. Has he done a good job? What's the fans feeling about Michael Carrick at Middlesbrough at the minute?
I think there's 100% sentiment that they really like him and want him to stay for as long as he possibly can, to be honest. There's a lot of context, I would say, from last season, which thought that we underperformed in some aspect. But when you look at when he first took over, he had Cameron Archer, Stuart Brackbaum, Ryan Giles, Aaron Ramsey, who's you guys who doesn't seem to play at all. We had all these attacking players and we just lost them overnight. And it was like, okay, we have to rebuild the squad again, bring in players who weren't adjusted to the league. And it took them a long time to adapt. I think we were bottom of the league after like 8 or 9 games and we weren't winning at all. And it was really difficult. But then we went on this great run towards the end of the season and we just missed out on the playoffs, but it probably didn't deserve to be there. But this year we've built again, the squad's been really stable. We've added quality to the group and it started to really work again. So it's been a 3-year plan or project for Boro. It has started really from Kieran Scott, who came in head of football where Middlesbrough never had one before. And then he's came in, completely changed how we operate from a transfer standpoint. We brought in a new head of recruitment, Chris Jones. And he's done a great job as well. And it's all added together. And like every window we've had under Kieran Scott, we've made a profit. And I think that's a really good thing because if you've seen Boro over the years where they've just spent a shit ton of money, and it's just when nowhere, and we just, we've spent like 8 million on Rudy Gestede, 8 million on Bamford, and just fell apart,
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're in a really good place, I would say, or in a good moment. Carrick's doing a fantastic job. I hope he stays for a long period, but, it won't be a matter of time until West Ham send him like a big, just lump of cash and say, fancy coming over here, the connections that he was there as a kid. So, there is that, but it'd be a disaster if he left us, to be honest. I think he's building something really good at the minute, and fingers crossed he can stay for a longer period as well.
Yeah, I was going to make a flippant comment about maybe Real Madrid coming in for him, if you get relegated from the Premier League like Bayern Munich did for Vincent Kompany. But you mentioned West Ham there, and I think that would make sense. Like you said, these connections and stuff. I hope for your sake it doesn't. And I definitely hope he's not sacked before Friday Lopetegui. I hope he's not sacked before Friday, and that doesn't disrupt everything. I really hope that doesn't happen, mate. But just sticking with Carrick and Middlesbrough this season, I presume your aims or ambitions are promotion to the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's playoffs, probably minimum. If we don't get there, I think it's a bit of a failure, to be honest. We've got a good enough squad there. So if we don't get there, it's a bit of a failure on Carrick's part. But yeah, why not? The top two still out of reach either. We've put some really good results together.
Yeah.
We're beating the teams in and around us. It's not out of the question, but we've already beat Leeds, we've already beat Sheffield United. Can we go and beat Burnley? And then it's like, well, if you've beat all those three, then maybe it's that momentum shift where you might see, okay, well, you've done some really good results. Can you continue? But yeah, I think that might just be out of reach right now. But the playoffs, 100%. I think that we can definitely make it.
Yeah, I think the playoffs, you're right, has to be the absolute minimum. And I do feel like you could be one of the better, if not the best side in the playoffs, because I do feel like the top three or potentially the top four, if Sunderland can turn their form around, but I've been saying for ages, I think they'll fade. I do think they'll start to pull away. And I do feel like you can then be the best of the rest. And then the team that finishes in third tends to, sometimes go into the playoffs in a little bit of a downer. So then you could carry that momentum maybe. It's interesting as well to say that you've beaten Leeds and Sheffield United. That does worry me slightly. I was not aware of that, but that is a good stat. Obviously, sticking with managers, there has been. I want to talk to you about Scott Parker because I like to get other people's opinions on Scott Parker because it seems to be cool to hate Scott Parker, whether you're a pundit, a podcaster, a fan of another club, or even a fan of Burnley. I feel like he's getting a lot of unnecessary stick. That has turned around a bit recently. Even the lads on the Second Tier podcast have actually praised him this week, which is an absolute mind blower. I can't believe that's actually happened. But it does seem to be cool to hate Scott Parker. I'm not particularly sure why. I'll be honest, I didn't want him as the manager. He wasn't my choice. But now he's here and I've watched him develop and I've watched him starting to play a little bit better and the club a little bit better. I am starting to think that maybe this guy is a good manager. I can understand how he's got two teams out of this league. So what are your thoughts on Scott Parker?
Yeah, I can understand why people would hate him because under his previous clubs, it's been quite low scoring to some aspect. I think his highest goals per game is actually with Burnley and any of his other clubs, which I think is quite interesting. And previously his teams were very heavy possession based and were overplaying too much, and it was like football terrorism because you were just trying to wear a team down with 1,000 passes, really, wasn't it? And
yeah,
it didn't really work, or it did, but it was like I'm getting bored to death. And it was kind of like, well, he's a little bit like the Cameron Jerome of managers, where he was too good for the Championship and not good enough for the Premier League. So it was like, just where's he gonna fit, really? But you can't knock his resume in terms of getting two teams promoted. He's done them with squads that should have been promoted, and he's got there, and you can't complain with that. It's that next step where I feel like he could just develop a little bit more. But I'm never going to tell Scott Parker how to manage a football team. I'm never going to tell him how to play football because he was a fantastic midfielder. But I think it's just his teams that haven't scored enough goals, really. And I think that's the reason why people may say that they hate him. But, if you get results and you win 1-0 every week, no one's going to complain either. So, it's one of those things. And then it's where it becomes preference. Is it like, okay, I win 1-0, but can I win 2-0? And it's like, it's football. Football fans will always nitpick and be reactive. But for the most part, you can't complain. I think with the job that he's done with 3 out of the 4 clubs that he's managed, we'll forget Bruges completely because he just failed. But ignore that one. But the other 3 in English and Second Tier, I think you can't complain with what he's done.
Yeah, obviously, I do agree with some of that. I feel like the start of his reign at Burnley was a little bit like slow. I did defend him because I felt some fans, especially after the Millwall game, I think we played like 14 games at that time, were saying, this isn't good enough, Parker out. I'm like, what can you do in 14 games, especially when he had the rug pulled from underneath him after the Sunderland games? He's got until January at the absolute minimum, in my opinion, given the full season, unless we're like 16th, 17th, then sack him. But I just feel like fans are too reactionary sometimes, and I feel like he's now starting to show that when he's got the tools at his disposal, he can turn these, I'm going to say, into more entertaining games. The first half in the Stoke game and the Coventry game was still pretty slow. But yeah, the second halves in both of them were a lot better. Anyway, let's speak specifically about the game on Friday then, mate. So how are you expecting Middlesbrough to set up against Burnley at the weekend?
Same shape in a 4-2-3-1. I still think we'll make a couple of changes to the side that beat Hull. I think that Solbrin will stay in goal for the time being, with Seny Dieng currently ill. Neto Borges will play left back. And I think we'll probably stick with Dale Fry and Edmondson for right now, centre half. And then I think, I'm stuck between Dyke Steele or Luke Hill might come in. And then in midfield, Hayden Hackney and Dan Barlasser. Then your front four, I think it could be anything. I think probably Delano Bergs or Finnazaz, Ben Doak. And then up front, we've seen it in the past, like Elaf scored a hat-trick and then got dropped the next game. So, it's pick or choose between him and Conway, but they've both been in excellent form. And I think that's how we're going to set up, and then how we approach the game. I think we'll be more dominant on the ball for the first part of it. And then I think it's a case of set pieces, I would say. I'm really intrigued to see how the set pieces do from a Burnley perspective, because we've been quite poor or reluctant, I say, just to defend in those in those moments. It's a bit questionable, but I think it's going to be a really intriguing game. Really intriguing. I think the first goal matters massively, if there is one. So if there is one. But I think the first goal is really important.
It's weird because your games seem to have a million goals in them every single weekend, and ours seem to have very little. So, are we going to meet in the middle, or is it just going to become like the immovable object where it just nothing happens? It's going to be so bizarre to see what happens. A little bit of breaking news. I'm not live, so I don't know why I'm doing this. I just want to get your reaction as well. Burnley will play Reading away in the FA Cup, which is tedious. That's a ground I've been to 3 or 4 times. It's miles away. I ain't going again for an FA Cup game. Middlesbrough will play Blackburn Rovers at Middlesbrough. Yeah, mate, that's...
I mean, at least we might have some players back, for that.
At least you can get some revenge for the offside goal. Hopefully you score an offside goal, mate, and knock them out. But anyway, let's get back to the game then. Interesting to see how you're going to set up. Obviously, we've already spoken about the players that you think can hurt Burnley. I don't like putting people on the spot like this, but sometimes I do. Is there any Burnley players that you're a little bit worried about?
I think there's one, obviously, I really enjoy Josh Cullen. I really, really like him. I thought, and I also quite liked the partnership of him and Josh Laurent a little bit for that time, for the game against Stoke. I think he came off. Did he come off though, Josh Laurent, in that game? I can't remember if he came off. But anyway, I thought he was playing well. And then probably the one play I'm probably either Sarmiento or Colosho on the left. I think they're a bit of concern. I think the players who would definitely thrive in a more Carrick type team, but when you are so regiment, I think sometimes the creativity can be shunned a little bit. But you've got some really good players. Like, this isn't like just a rubbish Burnley team. You've got quality there throughout the group, good young squad. There's some really good players. So I'm really keen to see. I'm always happy to see Josh Cullen play. I really, really enjoyed him when he was on the left. He played fantastically in the Championship campaign in the Premier League as well. So I was surprised that he kept holding, to be honest. I thought he might have moved up still.
Yeah.
But then, Colosho is probably the other one where I'm thinking, maybe it might cause a bit of issues on that left-hand side.
It's interesting because our upturn in form, should I say, has... You won't be surprised to hear this, coincided with Josh Cullen having an upturn in form. He started the season pretty poorly. I thought he was quite poor in the Premier League last season. So I do agree with you when you say I'm surprised we kept hold of him based on that Championship season. But then I think we've kept hold of him because last season in the Premier League, he was a little bit poor. The whole team was poor, though. So I'm not digging Josh Cullen out. And then he did start the season a little bit slowly. And now he's just starting to get into it. I've said it on my podcast a million times, so the people who watch us regularly are fed up with me saying it, but just for your benefit, he's been receiving the ball with his back to where we're shooting too regularly, and then he gets it, and by the time he tries to turn, he's either lost possession or he just passes it back. Now, all of a sudden, he's wanting to get the ball on the half turn. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's just Cullen getting a bit more confidence, if we've changed the system slightly, because Lorenz, as you mentioned, started coming in, and I do agree. I think that partnership works quite well in the middle, whereas previously we'd have Zian Fleming playing as a striker who's not a striker, so he'd be coming deep, and then we'd have the midfielder in the 10 coming deep, and then everybody was getting on top of each other. Whereas I think now it's just there's a lot more space in the middle. We're just doing a little bit better. So, yeah, I do agree. Cullen can make us tick, and hopefully he makes us tick on Friday night. Corley Orshaw, interestingly, again, not to mention the chat that I've had with Gab already today when I did the Sportsman Untitled podcast. I will put a link in the description for you guys if you want to watch it. He actually said he feels that Corley Orshaw is having a very good season with Burnley. You'll struggle to find a Burnley fan who agrees with that at the minute. He's obviously a very good player, but he's had a slow start to the season. Got the goal at Leeds. The problem with him is the end product is a worry. Like, he got the goal at Leeds, but the end product, other than that, is a worry. He did look a little bit better at Stoke, but there'll be so many times where he beats his man and then he comes inside and then gets tackled. It's like you're beating the man. You're trying to do too much. So, yeah, I love Corley Orshaw, probably one of my favourite players. But I don't think he's had a great season. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he gets on against you guys if you do feel he's a concern. Do you feel he's a concern because he's good, or you are a little bit light in the area that he'll be facing?
It's just that right side I'm always concerned on, to be fair. Like, Luke Ayling is very experienced, but, when someone he's next to him, he struggles. Dyke still comes in, but he's suspect at times. Middlesbrough play a lot on the left. Well, they have done in the past, play on the left, and sometimes that's exposed because you have Riley McGree or that players play on the left come inside. So it's like a 2v1 on the right-hand side for you. So that's always a problem, but I feel like Neto Borges might do quite well against Jed Anthony a little bit. But yeah, I just think he's a good player. I appreciate, like, end product's always a big thing in football, isn't it? Can he do it? But if he's getting to those right areas and creating enough, then it might just work out for him. And I think he's a good player. I think it's just a matter of time. How old's Corley Orshaw? He's like
20. 19, 20. He's a very young lad. Like, so don't get me wrong. Like, we're sat here saying your end product's not good enough. Like, it'll come as he gets older and he makes the right decisions, because it's a decision making thing for me. Like I said, when you're beating a man and coming back inside, if you have got more experience, you're beating that man and then you're going down the line or trying to get into the box in front of him rather than coming back inside and losing the ball. So, yeah, he is young and he will get better. And I still stand by what I said last season when I said he will play at the very top. I also think he will.
I agree. And look, if he's putting up those numbers right now at 19, there's a player there who you can really mold and develop in your own way. And I think it's just the next manager who gets a hold of him, really. And it's crazy that you're able to kind of say, so a 19-year-old, when you think that when you were 19, how, like, immature you were. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
don't know what you mean, mate. I was well mature at 19.
That's what I mean. But, like, you get so, like, I don't know, football age is just weird, isn't it? You think that these players, that they aren't kids, and they are. And I think you've got to be caught. I think you got to it's going to be with caution. You've got to look after them, haven't you? So, but yeah, I think he's a player I'm really looking forward to seeing on Friday. I think he'll be a good player in the future as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. Predictions then, please, mate. Let's get into predictions. What do you think the score will be on Friday night?
I think we'll win 2-1, unfortunately. I do. I feel confident. I just think with Middlesbrough's goals going forward, we can unlock defences, and I think that's such a good thing to have in the Championship. Normally the top scorers are in and around that top 3 or top 4 spot, aren't they? So, and yeah, I think we might do it. We've got a good record against other teams. Can we do it against Burnley? I'm not too sure, but I'm going to put my neck on the line and say 2-1, Boro.
Yeah, fair enough. Funnily enough, I've gone for the exact same score, just the other way. I do say to podcasters a lot on here, like, you'll do well to score against Burnley this season, and I stand by it. But I do think Middlesbrough will get that goal. I think if there's anyone that could score against us, funnily enough, we've got you coming up next. Then I think have we got Derby in between that? I don't know, but soon we've got Norwich as well. Norwich. Yeah, so we've got you and Norwich. We've got the two best forwards in the forward line, in the Championship. So we've got a real litmus test of our defence over the next few weeks. And if you look at our fixture list in December, we've got yourselves twice, Sheffield United on Boxing Day, Norwich away, some other teams in there as well, Watford, Derby. So if we are still in and around the top 2, if we're still in the top 2 come the end of Christmas and come early January, because I think early January we've got Stoke on New Year's Day and then Blackburn away on January the 4th. So if we are still in and around that area, then I think that's where we'll finish. So a real litmus test for us and a real litmus test for our defence over the next few games as well. It's going to be very interesting to see where we are come January the 5th. Fingers crossed, top of the league, and we've smashed all championship records. But we'll do very, very, very well looking at our December and early January to do that. But John, thank you for coming on the show. We will wrap it up there. But just before we do you want to let everyone know where they can find you and your Middlesbrough content if they want to check it out?
Yeah, just search for the Boro Breakdown on all the social media platforms and YouTube and on your podcast provider, and you'll find us. So yeah, Boro Breakdown podcast.
Yeah, highly recommend it. But Johnny, thank you and good luck for the rest of the season. Just, of course, after Friday.
Thank you.